Born in Arizona, William Greenwood studied languages and social sciences, receiving a degree in philosophy from the University of California. He had a career in agricultural development in California, as well as long-term residencies in Latin America and the Middle East. Published work includes a translation of Guatemalan poet Arqueles Morales, La Paz aún no ganada, peace has yet to be won. Chapbooks of his own poetry are Into the Center of America and Landscape/Cityscape, published by Word Temple Press, of which Paul Evangelisti wrote, "It is a sensual, hard-fought knowledge that pervades poetry, founded in and of this world, reinforced by the adventure of language." His most recent publication is 20 Love Poems and a Song of Hope, a reimaging of Pablo Neruda's iconic book of almost the same name. Please welcome to the podium Mr. William Greenwood.
Thank you, Monica, for that introduction. As well as thanks to Shauna and to Sandy for having me back as a featured reader. So I am going to read some poems from that new chapbook. But I'd like to begin with some poems of witness from my work life. My last job was in Colombia, where the foundation I worked for had projects with the victims of several armed conflicts there. One was in a remote Afro-Colombian community in the jungle on the Pacific coast, reachable only by small open boat. River Skin. From Guapi to Timbiqui. Our load-like canoa moves downstream while the camel-colored water at its own velocity moves, bearing upstream mud to the opening sea. My eye combs the landscape and mind screens this slice of tropical palms, the African oil, the chontadura, the coconut, then scans back to my fellow passengers, shades of black from blue to café con leche skin. How relative the distance from these continental kin to this brown white man, cooked crustacean red. So, Colombia has a population of about 55 million people, of whom 6 million are internal refugees displaced by the armed conflicts there. One of the most evil tools of modern warfare is landmines. They seldom kill, but they always maim. So we developed a project to support the Colombian Center for Integral Rehabilitation, acronym CIDEC, which trained landmine victims in manufacturing prosthetic devices. This poem is from the first time I met with them when the founder took me through their building, walking the museum hall in memoriam for Janet Peri de Sarabia. And the last stanza of the poem is a quotation of something that Janet said on that tour. A piece of broomstick with a rubber tip. The other end jammed into a cut-off plastic Coke bottle, turned upside down and strapped on the stump. This, a mother made for her son. For another man, a laced-up shoe, partly stuffed, where to put what's left of a right foot into. Okay for sitting. For walking, not so much. A farmer carved this hardwood log facsimile of his leg, now gone. A knot where the knee, a branch where the foot. One campesino fitted this wooden thigh with a bridle, so the knee and shin piece below articulate, something like a jaw. Constructed by the victims or their families, most of these never worked. But in such devices, we find a great human value. The Holy Land, as historical Palestine is called, sometimes brings us tales of unspeakable violence, but it can also produce tales of great beauty. Here's one about a landscape on a back road in the West Bank along the Green Line, which is the original border between Israel and Palestine. Terraces with olive trees. It has one word in Arabic, which is a cognate of the word in English, valley. The crust of a limestone hill, sun-baked, the color of rhinoceros hide, bucks and wrinkles down to the wadi floor. Stepping from the foot of the next hill, terraces climb the slope. Two agrarian hands work these desert rocks in my mind like butter. The paprika ground is speckled with lumps of cream turned up plowing between the trees. The olives' money green leaves hang, checking in the wind, dusted by fresh minted silver. This landscape grabs my senses like luminous sage crushed between thumb and forefinger. My eyes at the end of the 20th century savor these stone wall contours, running time through distance with topographic grace. The next poem is from a drive on that same road. It references Arabi Masri, which is the Arabic spoken in Egypt, and Arabi Shami, the Arabic spoken in Greater Syria. Because I had the car radio on to get news updates about an incident a few days before, wherein an armed Israeli doctor broke into the Muslim side of the tomb of Abraham, sacred to the three monotheistic religions. Written in the Middle East, poem in 3 parts. 1. Transjordanian radio signals in multiple tongues, Arabi Shami, Arabi Masri, some British, little American, but for a few blues riffs or occasional politician. Ululating music momentarily narcotic between the ears, soothes my checkpoint nerves along this tractored, green-lined stretch of road. Driving under smoldering clouds, I listen to the harmony break up, the channel fade to static. Outside, thunder. The wet rocks chipped across the field sharpen white against the rust-red ground turning black. 2. The wind into which I speak once again carries bitter news of victims and believers in polemical holy men wrapped by the long-worn martyr ground. These hills are riddled with limestone caves the ancients used to bury their great dead. The shrines that followed pilgrims to those righteous bones became temples. Family stones came to be holy. Centuries at a time, one of these stars, 5-pointed Christian, 6-pointed Jewish or Muslimate, rises and falls. What, under one sane, wrathful God's eye, is this morality of the temporal chosen few engaged in futile checkmate, or is not? Three. The driving rain from the south approaches me, and I will rain. Off east, a cumulus darkness opens. Down pours a shaft of light across the falling water. My eyes climb that column, brilliant, ethereal enough to be an angel, hovering where the wings would be, but are not. This alien driver toes the line on the road to Gaza Strip for another week of work. Years ago. Now I want to change gears and offer a couple of poems from my years of cross-country airplane travel. I've always had a fear of flying, for which my antidote is to take a window seat and look outside as if watching a movie. Midwestern block print. These magnetized eyes gravitate outside. Taut canvases splay 640-acre sections. Blacktop divides blocks stamped green and gold. Corn rows, almost chartreuse, line up next to khaki grains. The corduroy fields filed past me, heading west by southwest, spring into summer. The crop colors speak a four-sided speech of lives in patchwork. And this poem is a culmination of a series of poems that try to make the landscape speak. Aridity, Utah. A time-lapsing photo graphs sand waves of dunes cresting east that enunciate across this once inland sea. How read the shorthand of this parched tongue? What say the long fingers of this dry water? Rain shadows fill desert wallows. Washes, arroyo, and canyon, the mesas. O great basin, between mute consonants, your emptiness moans, vowels, pronouncing the wind. Okay, 100 years ago in southern Chile, a teenager wrote a book called 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair. Ever since, Ricardo Eliezer Naftali Reyes Basualto has been known to the world by his pseudonym, Pablo Neruda. My chapbook of almost the same name is a kind of reimagining of his book. It has an afterword that explains the story of how it came about, so I won't tell that now, except to say that it is dedicated to him. The first poem is dedication. May these artesian words come buoying you, wrapped in the angel's wings that brought me straight to your heart, from mine of which now you cannot escape, like light from the universe once set free. This one is set on a walkway in back of our house. Genie in the garden. When you pass along the back walk, the heirloom rose hips stir in your wake on top of their canes. Your savory oregano and fingerling thyme unleash themselves in my olfactory brain. I stop at the lemon tree, plucking one out from under the sun. Rubbed in my hands, it begins to slip, to shine, exuding essential oil. Here's a poem about the trees outside our bedroom window in a house we used to live in. Bifocal vision. The new day comes into view beyond the upstairs window that familiar limbs sidelong across. A light breeze reveals itself throughout the leaves, a whole world away from the roots. Inside our second story, my hands with their following arms go looking for you. As the wind picks up, our trunks branch together for the coming storm. A good marriage, I think, is filled with many wonderful mornings. Here's a poem about one such. The bather in question. Leaning forward, cantilevered into mirrored light, as if about to dive, your stirring wakens me. Arched across your back, a French blue towel, slowly sliding, falls down to the floor. My eyes come to rest, and eddy, echoing the pairs of your body, the shape of my answer. Time to clear? Okay, so almost done. The work took me on regular flights to some risky places. Here's a poem celebrating coming home. Terrestrial hello. I crossed the equator bound for home after too many weeks away. Before my eyes unfold massive systems of weather from which you meteorologically step center stage. Escort me out to sea and off to sleep. Fasten seatbelts. Landing gear clunks to position, pneumatics for asphalt. Abrupt smoking skid marks then signal the onset of my earthbound, slowly to come fully docked to your safe harbor gates, now parting lips. So, as I said, Neruda ended his 20 love poems with a song of despair, appropriate perhaps for a teenager, but it never was for me. So I end with a song of hope. Dawn comes in the kitchen window, bud break green out of the naked maple. Steam rises from the wooden fence, like a blessing following the light. May such good fortune once again befall me that I see our round world turn another day to wake up by your side. How do I thank the stars for dropping squarely in the luck of my two hands? Oh, you apple of these eyes, who from the whorls of my fingers conjures lines of praise and songs of song.